In 2007, Martin Wallace unveiled Brass, an economic strategy game set in the heart of England's Industrial Revolution, challenging players not just to build industries, but to time their investments, adapt, and even dismantle their own networks to claim victory. In 2018, Roxley introduced Brass as Brass Lancashire, refreshing the look and refining the design while preserving its sharp, competitive depth. That same year, Brass Birmingham expanded the system with new goods, the crucial beer resource, and the flexible scout action. Today, it stands as the #1 board game on Board Game Geek. Now, in 2026, the Brass legacy crosses the Atlantic with Brass Pittsburgh, transporting you into the 19th century America's Gilded Age, where steel, coke, and oil collide in the industrial heart of the Northeast. The next chapter of Brass is about to begin. What is going on, mi gente? This is your boy Jazz from the Lobby of Hobbies, bringing to you that highly anticipated Brass Pittsburgh preview, the newest game in the Brass lineup from Roxley Games, set to launch on Gamefound March 24th. Now, first, let me start off by saying this is a sponsored preview from Roxley Games, and everything you see here is going to be in prototype format. And if there are any changes to the game or to the campaign, you can find that all down in the link to the campaign below in the description. But if you are new to Brass, or if you are, this is not new to you and you are already familiar with the Brass system, hopefully this preview gives you a good insight to whether or not Brass Pittsburgh is something you want to be backing during the campaign. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, Brass is pretty much the same system through and through, and nothing changes here. This is an economic industry building game with Brass Pittsburgh. But let's first start off by talking about the previous two games, Brass Lancashire and Birmingham, how those two differed from each other before we start talking about Pittsburgh. Now, both Lancashire and Birmingham were games where it was spread over two different eras. You had the canal era being era 1 and the rail era being era 2, where players in both eras were going to be building out resource tiles and industry tiles and goods tiles and trying to flip those tiles over, all while creating networks to various ports or to market tiles and shipping goods out to score points. Now, in Brass Lancashire, there were two specific resource goods and tiles that players were trying to build, those being coal and iron. And whether you were building the access to those resources yourself or getting those resources from the outer market, you needed those goods to be able to build your cotton mills and to build your boats through your shipyards and being able to score your points. Now, Brass Birmingham differed where it added a third resource, that being beer, and also some new goods tiles. Not only were you trying to ship out cotton, but you were also trying to ship out manufactured goods as well as pottery, but you needed the beer to be able to ship out those goods. And instead of shipping those goods to ports, whether they're being your ports or your opponent's ports, or to the outer market as you were doing in Brass Lancashire, you were actually shipping these goods to various markets in the outskirts of the board. So there was various cities that were looking for specific goods. So some cities were looking for cotton, some cities were looking for manufactured goods or pottery, and some were looking for multiple goods. Now, trying to race to be one of the first ones to ship to those markets gave you an added benefit or bonus in Brass Birmingham, but pretty much you were trying to be able to have the beer to ship those goods and also have access or a network close to one of those markets to be able to ship those goods as well. And players were doing this over the course of the canal era, which is era 1, or the rail era, which was era 2. And in both games, during era 1, the canal era, any boats that you created and built out, you would score points based off of the connections to certain cities and flipped over tiles that would score points, those boats would be removed after the end of Era 1, and any level 1 buildings would be removed as well. And then in Era 2, you were pretty much doing the same thing you did in Era 1, but with level 2 or higher buildings and with trains to connect your routes and build your routes to be able to score your points, build your connections and have access to those ports or to those markets as you were doing in Brass Birmingham. Now, in both games, you had the ability to overbuild, which allowed you to build over top of buildings and tiles that you had previously built, whether they be yourself or in certain situations, building tiles that belonged to your opponents as well, if it met specific requirements. So those were the two differences that happened in Lancashire and Birmingham. You had the addition of beer in Birmingham, as well as the addition of 2 new goods with the manufactured goods and the pottery in Birmingham as well. Now, what does Brass Pittsburgh add that wasn't in the previous 2 games? Now, first, let's start off by saying this game also does have 2 errors, but instead of a canal error and a rail error, you just have error 1 and error 2, where in both errors you are only building trains. The only difference is that now you have light trains and heavy trains. Now, light trains are the one type of train that does not stick around when at the end of Era 1. So at the end of Era 1, all of the light trains will be removed and any heavy trains that were built stay out on the board. Now, players do start with a limited access to some heavy trains, but as players are building their industry tiles and their resource tiles, they will be, in essence, moving up this tech track and unlocking access to other trains, and these being heavy trains that they'll be able to build later out during the game. Some of these heavy trains give access to resources that only you can use. Some of them give access to additional scoring bonuses. Some of them give access to the ability to build over top of some light trains that may already be on the board for yourself, or actually some of your opponents' light trains as well. So this is one major difference, is that there is no canal error in Brass Pittsburgh. There also is the addition of new resources. Brass Birmingham gave you 3 resources to Lancashire's 2, but Pittsburgh now ups that 3 to give you 3 more resources. Now these resources are coal, iron, oil, which kind of acts like the beer did in Birmingham, coke, which is a byproduct of coal, steel, because we're in the steel city of Pittsburgh, and a new resource, whiskey, which is utilized as a wild resource, and we'll talk about it shortly. Now, again, there's no canal error, but with these 6 resources, coal, iron kind of act the same way as they did previously. Steel is similar to iron. It may be a little bit costlier, and then coke is kind of similar to coal, but when you're building coke, I said in the previous 2 games you were able to overbuild, and actually in Pittsburgh, there's no overbuilding, but there are some buildings that require you to upgrade previously built buildings. Now, coke is one of those. To build a coke refinery, you would have to build it over top of a previously built and flipped coal mine that you have on the board. While we're on the topic of resources, what happens if you don't have access to the resources that you need, as you did in Lancashire and Birmingham? Well, in Pittsburgh, you have access at any time to whatever resources you need at a premium, because Cornelius Vanderbilt will always ship whatever you need to wherever you need it at a premium. Now, you also have the addition of new goods types in Brass Pittsburgh. You have cotton that's going to be back. You have manufactured goods, But now you have kerosene, cars, locomotives, and you even have skyscrapers, which are kind of, I would call them more equivalent to the boats or ships that were in Brass Lancashire, where they are costly to put out on the board, but these actually give you a benefit where the ships in Lancashire didn't. They just gave you a lot of points. The skyscrapers in Pittsburgh will give you, as of right now, they're giving you an additional free sell action to be able to sell goods that you have out on the board. So being able to try and time some of these things out when you're building these skyscrapers or building locomotives that you're going to be shipping out is going to be very important on how you create that decision space in Pittsburgh. Now, we talked about whiskey being one of the new resources. Now, how whiskey works is it is a resource that you spend along with the card to make that card any city or any industry card you want it to be. So it makes the card you play a wild, which removes the scout action from Birmingham, which was discarding 3 cards to make them any 2 wild cards, be it 1 wild city, 1 wild industry, or in Lancashire where you were playing 2 cards from your hand to act as any 1 card that you did not have access to. Again, there is no overbuilding, it's going to be upgrading, but pretty much these are going to be the major changes that you're going to see in Brass Pittsburgh. Now, as you go through and you play and you're going to be working up this tech tree, is going to unlock specific trains, but also is going to unlock the newest network in the game, which is going to be getting access to that oil by having pipelines. You'll start off with a set number of pipelines to be able to build, and as we spoke about having access to beer in Birmingham, which needed to have breweries built to gain access to the beer, in Pittsburgh you actually have to tap into the oil by building pipelines to that oil to be able to extract it and then move it along your train network. Now, anytime you build a pipeline onto the map, it will cover over something. If you were the first one to discover that the oil at that spot, you'll flip over the oil tile, you'll see what immediate benefit you get, and you'll also determine how much oil is going to be flowing later on through the game through that specific pipeline. Now, oil pipelines will grant you, the person who built that pipeline, a specific benefit. Sometimes it will grant you some money, sometimes it will grant you some income, and sometimes it will grant you victory points. Now, that's whether you are pumping the oil through it or an opponent, every time an opponent pumps that oil through as well. So these are some new changes and nuances that you're going to see in Brass Pittsburgh, is the addition of the pipelines, the addition of the heavy trains, the elimination of the boats during a canal era, and these new resources, these new goods tiles as well. But also the last thing is that certain connections and networks that you're building throughout the player board will also give you access to one-time bonuses. When you cover it with a certain train, it might give you some movement up on the income track, it might give you some bonus points, it might give you some added whiskey. And also this whiskey, when you're selling your goods, waiting for the right time to sell those goods might be beneficial to you as well, because there are premium goods bonuses on the board as well. Think of them as targeted goals that you're trying to reach, and if you are able to sell 5, 6, or 7 stars worth of goods, it will give you some type of one-time bonus, and these are going to be randomized every game. So these are going to be the new differences that you're going to see in Brass Pittsburgh. Now, if any of this sounds like it might be up your alley, definitely follow through with the campaign down in the link to the description below. But if you have any questions, if you want to find out more about it, please follow along, hit that subscribe button as well as that bell icon. That way you can be notified anytime we drop new content, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about Brass Pittsburgh. But without further ado, I will catch you guys on the next one.